We know the COVID-19 pandemic has understandably been a major disruption.
Yes.
But what other forces are shaping the retirement journey today, and why is it important that we understand the factors impacting retirement?
Good question. Okay, so from our studies and a lot of the work that we've done at AgeWave over the years, what we've determined is that there are 5 converging forces that are really transforming retirement and retirement planning. So first, and this is probably something you may be aware of, is longevity. We are in an era of greater longevity. I mean, 2/3 of all people who have ever turned 65 are alive today, which is kind of crazy. And we didn't have a lot of longevity until the 20th century. In the 20th century, on the first day of the 20th century, average life expectancy was only 47. On the last day, it had gone all the way up to, on average, 79. Now that's more than a 30-year longevity bonus in just 1 century. Unfortunately, there's been a little bit of a backslide because of COVID. We've lost 2 years of life, but according to all the longevity experts and researchers at the cutting edge, they believe that there are so many longevity hacks, if you will, on the horizon that we're all going to be living a lot longer than we may think. So let's take the temperature of this room. How many of you, by a show of hands, would like to live to 100? Yeah, a good percentage of us, yeah. Well, when we asked this question in our study, 70% of all Americans said, yes, I want to live to 100. I was surprised by that. Anyway, let's take a look at one more clip from our town hall. If we could roll video, please. These are some of the participants and what they had to say about living to 100.
I would like to live to 100 with 2 criteria. I want to know that I'm still here, so I want my mind to still be working, and I want to be able to afford to still be here.
As long as I can remember, we had a toast, Chendan. May you live to be 100 years old. And I kind of thought that'd be cool.
I wouldn't like to live to 100 because life is too long.
I'd like to see what the world is like when I'm 100 or more.
So that's longevity. Longevity is only one of the converging factors. The second one is this misalignment between healthspan and lifespan. Now, what am I talking about? Okay, we all know what lifespan is. It's the number of years that you live. And we already said, US, we're doing pretty good. 77 is not so bad at all. However, there are 32 other countries that are doing better than we're doing. So there's some room for improvement. But what about healthspan? Healthspan is the number of healthy, vital years that you're alive. And here's the place where we're not doing so great at all. On average, Americans spend the last 12 years of their life in either disability, illness, or cognitive decline. And that's alarming. It's not enjoyable for one thing, but it costs a lot of money for families and for individuals, but also for the government. So we could all do a better job of matching our health span to our lifespan. So third is this baby boomer generation who certainly aren't babies anymore. I mean, I'm a baby boomer and I'm 72 years old. So why we're still calling them baby boomers? I don't know exactly, but they have really become an age wave and a retirement wave, and they are transforming retirement as we know it. Keep in mind, when their parents were retiring, it was a different set of logistics going on. So they are transforming retirement, which we'll talk about a little bit more later on. At the same time, think about population growth in terms of age. We've always thought of young people, that's where the growth is. It always made sense, and that's the way it generally was, but that's not how it is today. Today, the biggest growth in the population. And by the way, not just today and into the decades that we're going to see moving into the future, we're seeing that the biggest growth is with the oldest segments of society. So that's the baby boom generation. Fourth, we're living in an era where the whole model of funding retirement is really going through a change. How many of you remember the whole three-legged stool model of funding retirement? One or two people. It was the traditional method. And that traditional method had three legs. One leg was guaranteed company pensions. And as we all know, that's very few people get those anymore. So forget about that. The second, Social Security and other government benefits. Now we know that that program is also under strain, and they say that by the year 2034, there's got to be some changes in that program or it's not going to survive. By the way, when Social Security was first put into place, there were 159 workers for every one retiree. Today, there's less than 3 workers for every one retiree. So that's a big difference. So what about that third leg? Well, that's personal responsibility, and that's where things are landing today. It's becoming our personal responsibility to fund our own retirement, and that's a big task. So that's the fourth. And the last one, Lamel, you had already mentioned it,
Yes.
and it's the whole idea of COVID and the impact that COVID has had on retirement. Now, COVID has really impacted retirement and planning for retirement in a variety of ways, but let me give you 2 examples. For one thing, we know that during COVID, many people, 66 million Americans, decided that they were going to alter their retirement timing. And mostly they decided that they were going to retire later, work longer. And I think, Lamel, you'll tell us a little more detail on that later.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so besides that, though, we did have one silver lining from the pandemic, and I think it's a kind of big one, and that is that most Americans, due to COVID, and they told us this in our study, they decided that they were going to focus more on the things that really matter in life. And what did they say really mattered in life? Family and friends. So that's kind of a wake-up call.